It was supposed to be just one night. One goddamn night. No feelings, no risks, just a transaction. A role to be played. And yet, as Sienna Hale stepped out of the sleek black town car and slipped her arm through the stranger's, she felt something twist sharply in her chest, something dangerously close to anticipation. She hated that feeling. Especially tonight. Especially here. Especially with her ex-fiancé inside that grand estate, toasting to her brand new perfect life with a brand new perfect woman. The irony was choking. Sienna Hale, billionaire tech mogul, Forbes' darling, woman who'd built an empire before turning 35, was crashing her ex's engagement party with a fake girlfriend on her arm. A fake girlfriend she'd hired 3 days ago through a high-end, extremely discreet agency. And the worst part? She looked better than any woman had the right to. "You ready?" the woman asked, her voice low, sultry, confident in a way that made Sienna want to flinch. Or maybe melt. Her name was Raven. Just Raven. No last name. No backstory beyond what they'd rehearsed. Artist. Based in LA. Met Sienna at an exhibit in Berlin. Dating for 5 months. Deeply, irrevocably in love. It was all bullshit. But when Raven smiled, it didn't feel like it. "Let's go make your ex regret everything," Raven purred, her fingers tightening around Sienna's forearm with a possessiveness that sent electricity shooting through her spine. Sienna didn't respond. She couldn't. Her heart was already pounding too fast, not from nerves, she didn't do nerves, but from the terrifying possibility that Raven might not be playing at all. Hey, if you're enjoying this story, go ahead and drop a like to help us grow even more. And let me know in the comments. On a scale from 0 to 10, what score would you give this story so far? Your feedback makes all the difference. The mansion doors opened, and music spilled out. Soft jazz, classy, expensive. The kind of thing her ex, Veronica, had always preferred. A server offered champagne as they entered, and Sienna took a glass mostly to avoid clenching her fists. Raven took hers too, but she didn't drink. She just looked at Sienna, eyes gleaming with something unreadable. Something dangerous. "This place is crawling with money," Raven murmured, just for her, scanning the gilded walls, the dripping chandeliers, the men in tailored suits and women in polished smiles. "Fitting, since you're the richest one here. Flattery's part of the act, I assume?" Sienna asked coolly, sipping. "Oh no," Raven said, leaning in, voice brushing against her ear. "That one's free." Sienna's skin broke out in goosebumps. She was losing control of the situation. She never lost control. That was why she'd planned everything so carefully. That was why she'd hired Raven in the first place, to play the part of a devoted girlfriend, turn heads, make Veronica jealous, then disappear. Simple. Clean. Strategic. But Raven wasn't following the plan. She was too convincing. Too confident. Too dangerous. And Sienna had a terrible suspicion that she wasn't the only one faking something tonight. Sienna Hale. The voice that interrupted her thoughts belonged to Veronica's mother. Always perfectly coiffed, always half an inch from disapproval. "We didn't expect to see you here." "I got the invitation," Sienna replied, her tone polite and lethal all at once. Must have been a clerical error. The older woman's gaze shifted to Raven. "And this is?" "My girlfriend," Sienna said simply, slipping into the lie like a second skin. Raven smiled, extending a hand. "Raven, it's lovely to meet you." There was a pause, sharp and judgmental. But Raven didn't falter. She looked like she belonged there, draped in a deep emerald gown that hugged her curves and made her eyes shine like polished jade. Sienna had chosen the dress herself. She didn't think it would look that good. "Well," the woman said tightly, "enjoy the party." They barely had a second to breathe before Veronica appeared, like a ghost summoned by tension and regret. Sienna froze. She hadn't seen her in person in over a year. Veronica looked radiant, of course. Golden. Effortless. Still wearing the same perfume Sienna could smell in her dreams. And yet, her smile faltered the second she saw Raven. "Sienna," she said, and there it was, that soft lilt, that fake surprise. You came. Would have been rude not to, Sienna replied, voice smooth, steel-wrapped. Congratulations, Veronica. And who's this? Veronica's gaze dropped to their interlocked hands. Raven took a step closer to Sienna, her body fitting against hers with practiced intimacy. Raven, she said, offering a devastating smile. Sienna's girlfriend. The word landed like a slap. Veronica blinked. Just once. I didn't know you were seeing anyone. There's a lot you don't know, Sienna said, and for the first time in months, she felt like she'd won something. But Raven wasn't looking at Veronica. She was looking at her. And the expression on her face wasn't part of the act anymore. That was the moment Sienna knew she'd made a mistake. Because Raven wasn't just playing the part, she was stealing the spotlight. She wasn't there to help Sienna reclaim her pride. She was becoming the story. And Sienna? Sienna was starting to forget which parts were pretend. They spent the next hour weaving through the crowd, pretending to be a couple, pretending to laugh, pretending to be deeply in love. Except Raven didn't seem like she was pretending at all. She touched Sienna like she meant it, looked at her like she wanted her. And Sienna, despite every warning bell in her head, let herself lean in. Just a little. Just enough to feel the edge of something that terrified her. You okay? Raven asked at one point, eyes searching hers. You don't have to keep it together for me. I don't know what you're talking about, Sienna replied, voice tight. Sure, Raven said softly. But when you're done pretending to be bulletproof, I'll still be here. That was the second moment Sienna realized she was in trouble. Because for the first time in a year, she didn't want to be alone. She didn't want this night to end. And when Raven kissed her in the corner of the ballroom, soft, slow, devastating, Sienna kissed her back like it was real. Like it mattered. Like she already knew it would change everything. Sienna hadn't planned on the kiss. Not in any of the rehearsed lines or calculated movements she'd laid out for the night. It had been spontaneous. Stupid. Dangerous. And yet, her lips still tingled from the way Raven had pressed into her, slow and sure, like she knew exactly what she was doing. Like she wasn't acting at all. Now, back in the guest bathroom of the estate, Sienna gripped the edge of the marble sink, breathing in short, sharp bursts. The room spun just slightly, not from the champagne. She'd barely touched it, but from the unfamiliar sensation of losing control. Raven had seen too much, felt too much, said too much. When you're done pretending to be bulletproof, I'll still be here. The words had been a whisper, but they echoed now, louder than the jazz drifting through the walls. Sienna looked at herself in the mirror. Perfect makeup, immaculate dress, every inch the image of power. But her eyes betrayed her. Behind them was a storm she hadn't prepared for. A knock sounded at the door. Sienna? Raven's voice. Low, soft, still too steady. Are you okay? I needed a minute, she called back, forcing steel into her tone. You kissed me. You kissed me back, Raven replied without hesitation. There was a beat of silence. Then, more quietly, was it that bad? Sienna opened the door. Raven stood there with one hand against the doorframe, her body relaxed, her expression unreadable. That's not the point, Sienna said. Then what is the point? Raven stepped inside without invitation, closing the door behind her. That I didn't follow your plan to the letter? Or that it felt real, and now you don't know what to do with it? This isn't a game. No, it's not. It's a performance. One you hired me to give. So tell me, Sienna, do you want me to turn it down or turn it all the way up? Her voice had dropped, husky and intimate, and Sienna hated how her body responded. Heat bloomed in her chest, her neck, her core. I want you to remember your role, she said tightly. Which is what? Raven asked, stepping closer. Your fake girlfriend? Or the woman who just made your ex look like she swallowed a lemon? Sienna exhaled sharply, turning away. She didn't want to admit how satisfying that moment had been, seeing Veronica's perfect composure crack when Raven's lips touched hers. But it wasn't just about revenge anymore. That was the problem. She didn't want Raven. And yet she did. You're making this more complicated than it needs to be, Sienna muttered. I'm not the one hiding in the bathroom, Raven said softly. That hit its mark. Sienna turned to face her again, ready to snap, but the words caught in her throat. Raven's expression had changed. She looked gentle. Not smug. Not seductive. Just honest. You can't fake chemistry like that, Raven said. Not really. And I think you know it. Sienna's phone buzzed on the marble counter. A text from an unknown number. You look radiant tonight. Shame it took someone else to make you smile again. Her stomach flipped. Veronica. Of course. She hated that Veronica still had that effect on her. Knew which strings to pull, which words to use to get under her skin. Raven glanced at the screen, and then at her. That from her? Yes. Want me to kiss you again in front of everyone? There was no teasing in her voice. No playfulness. Just a quiet, dangerous offer. Would that help? Sienna swallowed. You don't have to go that far. Maybe I want to. Why? Because it's fun watching you unravel, Raven said. But then she added more softly, and because I like the way you taste when you stop pretending. Sienna stared at her. The room suddenly felt too small. Too hot. She needed air. Come on, she said briskly, brushing past her. We've got more pretending to do. Back in the ballroom, the energy had shifted. Eyes followed them now, some curious, some envious. Veronica stood across the room, her fiancé, Alyssa, Sienna remembered vaguely, engaged in polite conversation with a group of donors. But Veronica's eyes were locked on them. Sienna felt Raven slip her arm around her waist, pulling her just close enough to be inappropriate. It worked. Veronica's jaw tensed. She's watching, Raven whispered. Good, Sienna replied, and this time she initiated the kiss. Not as soft as the first. Not as tentative. This one was bolder, deeper, meant to be seen, meant to be felt. Raven responded immediately, her hands sliding up Sienna's back, her mouth hot and hungry, her body pressing flush against hers. And when they pulled apart, Sienna didn't need to look at Veronica to know she'd succeeded. But success didn't taste like satisfaction. It tasted like danger, like temptation, like fire. Later, as the party wound down and the car finally pulled up to the curb, Raven slipped into the back seat beside her without a word. The silence stretched thick between them until Raven broke it. You don't need to explain. Good, Sienna said, staring out the window. But then softer. That was reckless. No, Raven said. That was real. And I think that scares you more than her. Sienna turned to her, lips parting, but before she could speak, Raven leaned in again. Not for a kiss this time, but to whisper against her throat, just under her ear. You hired me to pretend, but if you keep looking at me like that, I might start forgetting what's fake. Sienna's breath hitched. She didn't sleep that night. Not because of the kiss. Not because of Veronica. But because she couldn't stop thinking about Raven's hands. Raven's mouth. Raven's voice. And the terrifying possibility that, for the first time in years, she was finally feeling something again. And she didn't know how to make it stop. Sienna had always known how to compartmentalize. It was what made her brilliant, ruthless, untouchable. She kept her personal life in one box, her business empire in another, and anything remotely emotional locked in a vault so deep, no one could ever find it. But Raven was prying the lid open without even trying. The day after the party should have been simple. Clean break. Payment processed. Experience deleted. But Sienna hadn't even made it through her morning espresso before Raven's name lit up her phone again. Come downstairs. No context. No explanation. Just that. She almost didn't go. Almost ignored it, deleted the message, and went back to pretending the kiss hadn't happened. But something stronger pulled her toward the private elevator of her penthouse. When the doors opened, Raven was standing there in a white button-down shirt tucked into black jeans, hair pulled into a low messy bun, no makeup, and holding 2 coffee cups like she belonged in Sienna's life. Like she'd always belonged. I brought peace offerings, Raven said, lifting the coffee with a small grin. Didn't think you'd let me up if I buzzed. What are you doing here? Sienna asked, arms folded, trying not to show the spike in her heartbeat. You didn't call. Didn't text. I figured I either terrified you last night or intrigued you. It was a job, Sienna said flatly. You got paid. Did I? Raven stepped forward. Because I'm pretty sure that kiss was overtime. Sienna's jaw clenched. You said you wouldn't blur the lines. You blurred them first. Raven's voice was soft, but there was an edge there. You looked at me like you wanted more than a performance. You kissed me like you forgot we were pretending. I didn't forget. Then why haven't you stopped thinking about it? Sienna faltered. Just for a second. And Raven saw it. You have 5 minutes, Sienna said stiffly, turning away. Then you leave. Raven followed her inside, kicking the door shut behind her. The apartment was glass and marble, all cold luxury, the kind of space that looked lived in only by ghosts. Raven sat on the edge of the cream leather couch, uninvited, casual, like she'd done it 1,000 times. You looked miserable last night, she said after a moment. Even after the kiss. Especially after the kiss. So, you came here to remind me? No, Raven said. I came because I think you're lying to yourself. Sienna's laugh was sharp. You don't know me. Don't I? Raven stood again, walking slowly toward her. I've watched the way you hold your breath when Veronica's name comes up. The way you try to calculate every move like people are equations you can solve. You're not heartless, Sienna. You're terrified. You don't get to psychoanalyze me. Then let me be clear, Raven said, stopping just in front of her. I don't want money from you. I don't want favors. I came here because I liked kissing you, and I want to do it again. Not because of some contract, but because I want to know what it's like when you kiss me for real. Sienna's breath caught. Her walls, always so well constructed, cracked just a little. This isn't how this was supposed to go. I know, Raven whispered. But maybe that's what makes it worth it. The silence between them pulsed like a heartbeat. And then Sienna moved. She didn't think. Didn't strategize. She just closed the space between them and kissed her. Rougher this time, more desperate, hands tangled in Raven's shirt like she needed something to hold on to before she shattered completely. Raven responded immediately, her arms wrapping around Sienna's waist, pulling her in until their bodies were flush. The coffee cups dropped to the floor, forgotten. Sienna pushed her back against the wall, her lips trailing down Raven's jaw, her breath uneven. You're dangerous, she murmured against her skin. You make me forget who I am. Good, Raven said, tilting her head to capture Sienna's mouth again. Then maybe you're finally becoming someone real. They made it to the bedroom in a blur of hands and heat. It wasn't supposed to go this far. It wasn't. But the second Raven's shirt hit the floor and Sienna's hands found skin, reason evaporated. Every kiss, every gasp, every breathless whisper peeled back another layer Sienna didn't know she'd been hiding behind. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel untouchable. She felt seen. Raw. Alive. Afterward, the silence was heavier than before, but not uncomfortable. Raven lay beside her, sheets tangled around her waist, watching the city skyline through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Sienna sat up, back against the headboard, a rare vulnerability in her eyes. This complicates everything, she said. Raven turned to her. Why? Because I don't do this. I don't let people in. Maybe it's time you started. What if I ruin it? Sienna asked the question so soft it barely existed. Raven reached out, her fingers brushing against Sienna's wrist. Then ruin me. I'm not afraid of you. That was the third moment Sienna knew she was in trouble. Because she was already halfway ruined. And Raven? Raven didn't seem like the type to leave pieces behind. Sienna woke before the sun. Not because of the light. Her penthouse had blackout curtains, but because her mind had never learned how to rest. Not really. Not since Veronica. Not since the day everything cracked, and she decided the safest way to survive was to feel nothing at all. But Raven had shattered that. She lay beside her now, deep asleep, her dark lashes casting shadows over her cheekbones, one arm flung over the pillow like she belonged there. Like she'd always belonged there. Sienna sat on the edge of the bed, her bare feet on the cold floor, staring at the skyline she no longer recognized. Everything was shifting, and she didn't like it. She'd kissed Raven again and again last night, not because of some role, not for show, but because she wanted to, needed to. And that terrified her more than anything. Sienna Hale didn't need. She commanded. She controlled. But with Raven, all her defenses felt flimsy, childish, transparent. She got dressed quietly and left the bedroom, the silence of the morning thick around her. She needed clarity, space, distance. She needed to remember that this had all started as a performance. And if she wasn't careful, it was going to end as something a lot more dangerous. By the time Raven woke up, Sienna was gone. The bed cold. The apartment silent. There was a note on the nightstand. Had to take a call. Help yourself to anything. S. Raven stared at it for a long time. 14 words. Not even a smiley. Not even a lie about let's do this again. She got dressed, left the apartment without touching a single thing, and didn't look back. Sienna, meanwhile, wasn't on a call. She was in her car, driving aimlessly through the city like she used to in her 20s, back when the world still felt like it had corners worth exploring. Her mind wouldn't stop replaying last night, the feel of Raven's hands, the sound of her voice, the way she looked at Sienna like she mattered. It was maddening, because now Sienna had a problem she couldn't solve with money or silence. She'd started something, and she didn't know how to end it without breaking herself. Or worse, breaking Raven. Her phone buzzed. She ignored it. Then it buzzed again. Finally, she checked it. Veronica, we should talk. Not about the party. About us. Sienna felt like the air had been knocked out of her. Us. That word hadn't meant anything in over a year. It shouldn't mean anything now. But it did. Against her will. Against her logic. Veronica was still a wound that hadn't healed. Still a name that made her spine stiffen. Still a temptation. Don't answer, she told herself. But her fingers were already moving. Come by the office at 3. Back at her building, Raven stood outside the elevator, her arms crossed, trying to talk herself out of caring. It had been one night, one contract, one kiss, okay, several kisses that didn't mean anything. At least, that's what she kept telling herself. But her gut said otherwise. Sienna had looked at her like she wanted something real, and then disappeared like a ghost. Raven got on the elevator, punched the button, changed her mind halfway, and stepped out again. She wasn't going to wait around like a fool. She'd been honest. She'd risked something. And if Sienna didn't want it, that was fine. She'd walk away. She'd done it before. She could do it again. But the truth was, Sienna had already started living under her skin. Meanwhile, 3 o'clock arrived. Veronica stepped into Sienna's office like no time had passed. Same confident smile. Same predatory energy masked as elegance. Nice place, she said, glancing around the glass walls and clean lines. But then again, you always liked control. Why are you here? Sienna asked coldly. Veronica sat, crossing her legs with deliberate ease. I saw you last night. With her. And she's not real. Sienna said nothing. Veronica leaned forward. You don't have to pretend. I know you. I know what we had. What we still have. There's nothing left between us, Sienna said, but it didn't sound convincing. Not even to her own ears. Then why did you answer my text? Veronica's smile was cruel and soft all at once. You think this little act will protect you from feeling anything? I know you better than that. You don't know me anymore, Sienna snapped. You never did. Then tell me, Sienna, did you hire her just to make me jealous? Or because you're so afraid of being alone you'll pay someone to pretend they care? That one landed. Sienna flinched, and Veronica saw it. I'm not here to fight, she said, her voice dropping. I'm here because I regret how things ended. You ended them, Sienna said. You walked away. Because I was scared. Because you wouldn't let me in. I tried, Sienna whispered. You never saw it. I see it now. The silence between them was different than the one she shared with Raven. This one was stale, heavy with the past, with resentment, with things that couldn't be undone. Veronica leaned forward and brushed a strand of hair from Sienna's face. "We could try again." And for one horrible second, Sienna didn't pull away. She didn't say no, because she was confused, and scared, and maybe still bleeding. "I need time," she finally said. Veronica smiled like she already knew the answer. "Of course you do." When she left, the office felt colder. Sienna stared at the city for a long time, her reflection looking hollow in the window. She didn't go home that night. And Raven? Raven didn't reach out. But neither of them slept. Raven wasn't angry. Not at first. She was disappointed. And that was worse. Anger was easy, fast, burning, over in a flash. But disappointment sat heavy in her chest, lingering like smoke, like a scent that refused to leave her skin. It had been 2 days. 48 hours of silence. No texts. No explanations. Not even a lie to soften the blow. Raven had let herself believe, just for a second, that Sienna might be different. Might be worth the risk. That night in the penthouse had felt real. Not polished, not rehearsed. Raw and chaotic and full of emotion that couldn't be faked. But apparently for Sienna, it had been just another role. Another performance. Another way to escape what she couldn't face. Raven tossed her phone onto the couch and paced the apartment. She wasn't good at waiting. And she definitely wasn't good at being forgotten. She had half a mind to walk away, to erase Sienna from her memory like every other mistake she'd survived. But the other half, the foolish, aching, human half, wanted answers. So she sent a message. Just 4 words. Say it was nothing. And waited. Sienna read the message on her office balcony, the city buzzing below her, a glass of untouched bourbon in her hand. Her throat tightened. She could barely breathe. Raven's words were a punch to the ribs, not angry, not bitter, just devastatingly clear. She hadn't said anything because she didn't know what to say. She didn't know how to apologize for something she hadn't meant to ruin. And yet somehow she had. She typed, deleted, retyped. Nothing sounded right. Nothing felt enough. Finally, she sent. It wasn't nothing. I'm just not good at this. The response came fast. Then get good. Or let me go. Sienna stared at the screen. Her chest ached. Raven wasn't bluffing. She was giving her a choice. A line in the sand. And Sienna had never been more terrified to cross something in her life. She closed her eyes and thought about that night, the way Raven had touched her like she was made of more than steel and stone. The way she'd looked at her like she saw everything and didn't flinch. She thought about Veronica's offer to try again and how cold it had felt, like stepping into a memory that didn't fit anymore. Then she did something she hadn't done in years. She turned off her phone, grabbed her coat, and walked out of the office without telling a soul. Raven lived in a small loft over an art gallery in West Hollywood. When the elevator opened and Sienna stepped out onto the rooftop hallway, she was hit with a sudden rush of doubt. What if Raven didn't want to see her? What if she'd already decided Sienna wasn't worth the pain? But then the door opened. Raven stood there barefoot, wearing nothing but an oversized sweater and a look of quiet fury. "Took you long enough," she said. "I know." Sienna's voice cracked. Raven didn't invite her in. "Are you here to lie to me again? Or to kiss me until I forget you disappeared?" "Neither," Sienna said. "I'm here to say I was scared. And selfish. And that I'm sorry." Raven folded her arms. "For which part?" "For wanting you and pretending I didn't. For needing you and not knowing how to say it. For treating you like something temporary when you were the only real thing I've felt in years." The silence was brutal. And then Raven stepped aside. Just slightly. "You can come in, but if you walk out again, don't come back." Sienna walked in. The loft smelled like oil paint and cinnamon. Messy, lived in, warm. Everything her world wasn't. "I didn't know how to handle it," Sienna said quietly. "You made me feel things I wasn't ready to feel." "That's not my fault," Raven replied. "I know." I'm not here to fix you, Sienna. I'm not some project you can build and walk away from. I don't want you to fix me, Sienna said, stepping closer. I want you to stay, and I want to try. Try what? Raven asked. Being real, Sienna whispered. With you. That was the moment Raven's expression softened. Just a fraction. It's not going to be easy. I'm not asking for easy. Then what are you asking for? Sienna hesitated, then reached out and took Raven's hand. Dinner. Tomorrow. No scripts. No pretending. Just you and me. A real date. Raven studied her face for a long moment. Then, finally, she nodded. Okay. Sienna felt something uncoil in her chest. Something long forgotten. Hope. Okay, she echoed. She didn't kiss her that night. Didn't push. Just held Raven's hand until their fingers fit naturally again. And for the first time since the engagement party, she stopped running. She stayed. Sienna didn't do restaurants. Not in the way normal people did. She reserved entire dining rooms, cleared floors, paid chefs double to keep things private. She wasn't being dramatic, she was being careful. Her name attracted attention. And after what had happened between her and Raven, the last thing she wanted was an audience. But Raven didn't want control. She wanted real. So Sienna made the reservation at a quiet rooftop spot in Silver Lake, the kind of place she'd normally avoid. It was dimly lit, all warm wood and hanging plants, with a view of the city that felt intimate instead of grand. Vulnerable, not performative. She arrived early. Wore a dark green dress, simple, unguarded, no designer logos, no press-tailored stiffness. She didn't want to intimidate Raven tonight. She wanted to meet her. As equals. As women. As something that could become more. Raven arrived 10 minutes late, her hair loose, wearing soft black slacks and a silk blouse that caught the candlelight in all the right places. When she saw Sienna, something in her expression cracked just a little. Relief, maybe. Or forgiveness. You clean up nice, Raven said, sliding into the seat across from her. So do you, Sienna replied, and for once, it didn't feel like armor. Just truth. They talked. About books. Films. Childhood. Things that didn't feel safe until now. Sienna let Raven see her laugh, really laugh. Not the polite boardroom smile, not the calculated charm. A real, unguarded laugh that made her eyes wrinkle at the corners. Raven told stories, gesturing with her hands, sipping wine slowly, like she wasn't in a hurry to run. Sienna watched her like someone memorizing light. But just as the night began to feel like something close to perfect, a shadow cut through the warmth. Sienna Hale, a voice said from the left. Male. Familiar. Cold. She turned slowly and froze. No, David, she said carefully. Raven tensed. The man was tall, sharply dressed, with that effortless smirk that only men with inherited power wore. Didn't expect to see you here, he said, eyes flicking toward Raven, then back to Sienna. And with company. I'm busy, David. Clearly. He didn't leave. Instead, he stepped closer. You ignored my last 3 emails. And now I'm going to ignore your face. Walk away. But David just laughed. You know, I always found it fascinating how quickly you latched onto distractions whenever things got real. First Veronica. Now this one. Sienna's jaw clenched. Don't. You think pretending you're some romantic hero changes the fact that the board is watching you? That your personal life doesn't bleed into business? This isn't the time. It's exactly the time. You may think you're untouchable, but you're not, Sienna. You don't get to build an empire and still act like a teenager in love. Raven stood slowly. Her expression wasn't angry, it was calm. Lethal. You should leave, she said to him, voice low. David smiled, eyes scanning her like a threat. And you are the woman who'll break your jaw if you don't walk away in the next 10 seconds. For a moment, no one moved. Then David stepped back, raising both hands mockingly. You've got a type, Hale. Fiery. Temporary. And then he left. The silence he left behind wasn't awkward. It was heavy. Sienna couldn't look at Raven. Couldn't meet her eyes. I'm sorry, she murmured. He's on the board of my parent company. I didn't know he'd be here. Doesn't matter, Raven said. What he said, was it true? Sienna looked up. Which part? That you run from things when they get real. The answer didn't come easily. I used to. And now? Now, Sienna reached across the table. I'm still learning how not to. Raven studied her hand, then took it. But the moment had shifted, and Sienna could feel it. Later that night, in her car, Raven was quiet. The city blurred past the windows, but neither of them was looking. Do you still talk to Veronica? Raven asked suddenly. Sienna's breath caught. No, but she came to your office. Didn't she? How do you know that? I don't, Raven said. But I figured it out. You disappeared the next day. You left me in your bed like a prop you didn't know what to do with. I panicked. I get that. But if there's still something between you and her, there's not. Sienna's voice cracked. There's history. There's pain. But she's not what I want anymore. Raven turned her head, finally looking at her. Then what do you want? Sienna hesitated. You. Raven didn't answer. Not right away. But when they reached her building, she leaned in and kissed Sienna, not soft, not tender, but like she needed to taste the truth of that answer. Then don't screw it up, she whispered. Because I'm not Veronica. I don't give second chances. Sienna didn't sleep. Again. She'd spent most of the night staring at the ceiling, Raven's words echoing over and over in her head. Don't screw it up. I don't give second chances. She meant it. Sienna could feel it like a stone in her chest, heavy and unmoving. This wasn't a game anymore. It hadn't been for a long time. Raven had become more than a distraction, more than a shield against Veronica. She was now the risk Sienna wanted to take. But wanting wasn't enough. Sienna had spent her whole life building walls with steel and silence. Now she needed to break them down piece by piece. And she had no idea how. That morning, she canceled her meetings, told her assistant to reroute all calls. She needed space. She needed to think. And more than anything, she needed to see Raven again. Not just to fix what had fractured the night before, but to offer something she'd never given anyone. The full truth. She stared at her phone for 15 minutes before calling. It rang once. Twice. Then Raven picked up. You're brave, Raven said instead of hello. Or stupid. I'm both, Sienna said quietly. But I want to see you. You saw me last night. That wasn't enough. I'm working, Raven replied, her voice unreadable. You can come by the studio if you want. But I'm not dropping everything for you. I wouldn't ask you to. The call ended. The silence left behind felt colder than the dial tone. When Sienna arrived at the small West Hollywood studio, she wasn't prepared for what she saw. Raven was standing barefoot on a large canvas, covered in paint, her body moving with rhythm and focus, headphones in, lost in her own world. Color streaked her hands, her thighs, the hem of her black tank top. She looked like chaos and creation all at once. Beautiful. Untouchable. Sienna didn't speak. She waited until Raven noticed her. When their eyes finally met, Raven pulled the headphones out and exhaled like she was already exhausted by whatever conversation was coming. You showed up. I said I would. People say a lot of things they don't mean. I mean this. Sienna stepped inside, slowly, carefully, as if the studio were sacred ground. In a way, it was. Raven's world was messy, emotional, open. Everything Sienna's wasn't. Why do you love this? Sienna asked softly, looking around at the canvases, the brushes, the wild color. Because there's no right way to do it, Raven said. Because it's messy and painful and beautiful. Because you can ruin something and still make it mean something. I want to try, Sienna said. To be part of it. To be part of you. Raven looked at her. Long, hard. I don't need you to fix yourself first, Sienna. I just need you to stop hiding from me. That's all I've ever needed. I know. Then show me. Sienna walked forward, took Raven's hand. Her fingers were stained with blue and gold and red. Sienna didn't care. She pulled her close, chest to chest, heartbeat to heartbeat. Ask me anything, Sienna whispered. I won't lie to you. Why did you stay with Veronica so long? Raven asked immediately. Because she made me feel like I wasn't hard to love. Until she didn't. Raven's breath hitched.
And me?
What am I? You're the person who terrifies me most, Sienna said. Because when I'm with you, I want to be honest. Even when it hurts. Raven searched her face. And when you're not with me, I hate myself for the silence. That was the moment Raven kissed her again. This time slow. This time without anger or urgency. Just truth. Her fingers tangled in Sienna's hair, her paint-smeared hands leaving traces on Sienna's skin, and Sienna didn't care about the mess. She welcomed it. They made love on the floor of the studio, between half-finished canvases and the scent of oil and turpentine. It wasn't polished. It wasn't perfect. But it was real. Sienna moaned Raven's name like a prayer, like a confession, and Raven whispered hers like a promise. Afterwards, they lay tangled in the chaos, chests rising and falling in unison. Sienna traced a line of red paint across Raven's collarbone. Do you believe me now? I'm starting to, Raven said. But belief is earned. Then I'll earn it. But just as the moment settled into something warm and whole, Sienna's phone buzzed from across the room. Reluctantly, she got up.
Checked it. Froze.
Raven sat up. What is it? Sienna turned the screen. It was a photo. Of the two of them. From the restaurant. Sent from an anonymous number. Thought your investors might enjoy this. Raven's face went pale. Someone's watching you. Someone's trying to use you against me. Veronica? Or David, Sienna muttered. Or both. She stared at the screen, ball rising in her throat. They think you're leverage. Are they wrong? Raven asked quietly. Sienna looked at her. They're going to regret ever thinking that. Sienna wasn't afraid of threats. She'd received them before, veiled, direct, even poetic once, courtesy of an art tech rival who thought metaphors softened sabotage. But this time was different. This time, someone had targeted Raven. And that made it personal. Her mind went cold the second she saw the message. Anonymous number. A grainy photo of them from the restaurant. Mid-laugh, hands nearly touching across candlelight. Thought your investors might enjoy this. That wasn't just a threat. It was a warning. A game. A test of how far Sienna would go to keep her private life private. Raven's eyes scanned the message twice. Then she stood, pulling on her oversized paint-splattered hoodie, like the cold had suddenly found her. You should go, she said quietly. What? I said you should go, Sienna. No. You came here wanting to be honest, so let's be honest. I didn't sign up for this. I didn't sign up to be watched, followed, dragged into whatever corporate drama is brewing in your world. I'm not leaving. You should, she said again, voice cracking. Before it gets worse. Sienna stepped forward, but Raven took a step back. I don't need protection. I need peace. And I can give you that, Sienna said. But not if you push me away now. Raven's gaze turned sharp. You think this is about you? You think I'm scared of the press? Of a photo?
No.
I'm scared of falling in love with someone who doesn't know how to hold people without hurting them. Sienna felt that like a slap. And she didn't move, didn't defend herself, because it was true. She didn't know how to hold without tightening, without crushing. I don't want to be another casualty in your past, Raven whispered. And right now, I don't know if you're capable of letting someone survive your love. Then I'll prove I am, Sienna said, her voice low, steady. Starting now. Raven turned away, her silence heavier than any scream. Sienna left. Not because she gave up, but because sometimes retreat wasn't surrender. It was strategy. And this wasn't over. She didn't sleep that night. Instead, she went to her office, called in her head of security, her PR strategist, her legal team. No one went home. Not until she had names. Not until she knew who had sent that photo. Not until she could make them bleed, figuratively, of course. Unless they pushed her. It didn't take long. By morning, she had an answer. David. Of course. He had access to board resources, connections to press outlets, and a long history of trying to destabilize Sienna's position as CEO ever since he lost a vote against her promotion 3 years earlier. And now, he was using Raven as leverage. The mistake he'd made? Underestimating how far Sienna would go to protect what was hers. She arrived at the next board meeting early, sat at the head of the table, unbothered, immaculate in a black suit that screamed "Don't F / with me /." When David walked in, he smiled like nothing was wrong. "Ms. Hale," he said smoothly. "Always a pleasure." "David," she replied, "before we begin, I'd like to address a matter of misconduct." His smile faltered.
Barely.
But it was enough. "What sort of misconduct?" "You used company resources to access a private surveillance network," she said, sliding a folder across the table. "Then leaked photos to the press with the intent to manipulate investor trust." The room went still. One of the other board members coughed. David didn't deny it. "Not exactly. You're in the public eye, Sienna. What you do reflects on who I date is none of this company's business," she snapped. "But harassment? Exploitation? Illegal surveillance? That is. And I have the evidence." She slid a second folder across the table. "You have 2 choices. Resign quietly and never step foot near me or my company again. Or fight me, and I'll make sure you're blacklisted from every tech and media company in the country before the week's out." David stared at her, then laughed, cold and bitter. "All this over some fake girlfriend you hired?" Sienna stood slowly. "She stopped being fake the moment I realized I'd burn this company to the ground if it meant keeping her safe." The room went dead silent. David's face twisted, but he saw the truth. Saw the fire in Sienna's eyes that meant she wasn't bluffing. He walked out without a word. That night, Sienna went back to Raven's studio. She didn't knock. Just waited, her coat damp from the LA drizzle, her heart thudding with something dangerously close to hope. The door opened. Raven stood there, barefoot,
Quiet.
tired. "You're soaked." "I know. You look like hell." "That's fair." "What do you want, Sienna?" Sienna stepped into the light. "I want to show you who I am when I'm not scared, when I'm not hiding. I want to tell you that I destroyed a man's career today because he threatened you.
Because you matter to me.
Because I don't want to protect you like an asset. I want to fight for you like someone who finally knows what love is." Raven didn't speak. Her lips parted, but no words came out. "I've never said that before," Sienna whispered. "Not like this. Not when it meant something." Raven looked at her, looked into her, and slowly, quietly, she pulled Sienna inside. "Then prove it," she said.
Stay.
"Don't disappear this time." "I'm not going anywhere."
And she didn't.
Sienna woke up in Raven's bed, tangled in warm sheets and soft breath. For a moment, she didn't move.
Didn't speak.
She just stared at the cracked ceiling and listened to Raven's breathing beside her, steady, real, grounding. There had been no sex that night. No urgency. No heat. Just limbs wrapped around each other, skin against skin, and a silence that, for the first time, didn't hurt. It healed. She hadn't needed to prove anything with her body. She had shown everything with her presence. And Raven had let her stay. That was the win. But with morning came the wait. The question that always followed something beautiful. Can I keep it? Or will I break it like everything else? Sienna sat up slowly. Raven stirred, eyes fluttering open. "You're still here," she whispered, voice husky from sleep. "You sound surprised." "A little," Raven said, shifting onto her side. "I've never seen you like this." "Like what?" "Soft." Sienna gave a dry laugh. "Don't get used to it." "Oh, I plan to." The silence stretched again, but it was sweet this time. Comforting. Until Raven spoke again. "So, what happens now?" "What do you mean?" "You torched a man's career for me. Confessed you love me. Stayed the night. Feels like something shifted." Sienna nodded. "It did." "Then what's next?" Sienna hesitated. "I don't know." Raven studied her. "Do you want this to be public?"
Us.
"Eventually. Eventually means you're still afraid. Eventually means I want to do it right, Sienna said. Not out of reaction. Not out of rebellion. I want to be with you because it's us, not because it's news. Raven nodded. She understood. But something in her eyes dimmed. Just slightly. And Sienna saw it. You don't believe me. I do, Raven said. I just don't trust time. Or timing. Sienna wanted to reach for her. But her phone buzzed. Again. And again. She checked the screen. Dozens of missed calls. Emails. News alerts. Her name was everywhere. But not because of David. Because of something else. Something worse. Veronica. Sienna Hale's former fiancé tells all. She used me like she's using her new girlfriend. Raven sat up. What is it? Sienna's throat tightened. It's Veronica. She opened the article. There were photos.
Quotes.
Statements from sources close to the couple. Accusations. Manipulation. Implications that Raven had been bought, like an accessory in Sienna's revenge fantasy. She went public, Sienna whispered. She told them everything. Everything. Raven asked carefully. The party.
Us.
That I hired you. Sienna looked up. She's painting you as a prop. Raven's face went still. Blank.
Well.
She's not wrong about the beginning. But she's wrong about everything else. Is she? The question cut deeper than Sienna expected. Raven. I agreed to this, Sienna. I agreed to pretend. To help you make a point. So maybe I was a prop. Maybe I let myself believe it was more. It is more. You know it is. Then why does it still feel like I'm standing in her shadow? Raven stood, grabbing a hoodie from the floor. I told you I wouldn't survive being another casualty in your past. You're not, Sienna said, standing too. You're not her. And I'm not who I was with her. This is different. Raven's eyes filled, not with anger, but something worse.
Doubt.
Then prove it.
Publicly. Now.
Not eventually. Not when it's convenient.
Now.
You want me to go public? With us? I want to stop being something you're afraid to name. Sienna stared at her. Her heart thudded like a warning. She wasn't afraid of business battles, corporate takeovers, hostile investors, but this was terrifying. Because it meant letting the world see. Letting them tear her apart. Letting them get to Raven, too. But love, real love, wasn't private. It didn't live in silence. Okay, Sienna said, voice steady. Let's do it. Really? Right now. She grabbed her phone. Opened her social media app. Took a photo. Raven, still raw, hoodie half on, no makeup, eyes wary. She snapped it anyway. Typed the caption. This is Raven. She's not a distraction. She's not a prop. She's the reason I'm becoming someone better. And I love her. She hit post. The silence afterward was deafening. Raven stared at her. You didn't have to do that. You asked me to. But you didn't hesitate. No, Sienna said. Because if I lose everything because of this, at least I'll know I finally chose right. Raven crossed the room slowly and kissed her like a storm breaking. No more pretending. No more shadows. Just truth. Just them. Finally them. Sienna woke up in Raven's bed, tangled in warm sheets and soft breath. For a moment, she didn't move. Didn't speak. She just stared at the cracked ceiling and listened to Raven's breathing beside her, steady, real, grounding. There had been no sex that night. No urgency. No heat. Just limbs wrapped around each other, skin against skin, and a silence that, for the first time, didn't hurt. It healed. She hadn't needed to prove anything with her body. She had shown everything with her presence. And Raven had let her stay. That was the win. But with morning came the wait. The question that always followed something beautiful. Can I keep it? Or will I break it like everything else? Sienna sat up slowly. Raven stirred, eyes fluttering open. You're still here, she whispered, voice husky from sleep. You sound surprised. A little, Raven said, shifting onto her side. I've never seen you like this. Like what? Soft. Sienna gave a dry laugh. Don't get used to it. Oh, I plan to. The silence stretched again, but it was sweet this time. Comforting. Until Raven spoke again. So, what happens now? What do you mean? You torched a man's career for me. Confessed you love me. Stayed the night. Feels like something shifted. Sienna nodded. It did. Then what's next? Sienna hesitated. I don't know. Raven studied her. Do you want this to be public?
Us.
Eventually. Eventually means you're still afraid. Eventually means I want to do it right, Sienna said. Not out of reaction. Not out of rebellion. I want to be with you because it's us, not because it's news. Raven nodded. She understood. But something in her eyes dimmed. Just slightly. And Sienna saw it. You don't believe me. I do, Raven said. I just don't trust time. Or timing. Sienna wanted to reach for her. But her phone buzzed. Again. And again. She checked the screen. Dozens of missed calls. Emails. News alerts. Her name was everywhere. But not because of David. Because of something else. Something worse. Veronica. Sienna Hale's former fiancé tells all. She used me like she's using her new girlfriend. Raven sat up. What is it? Sienna's throat tightened. It's Veronica. She opened the article. There were photos.
Quotes.
Statements from sources close to the couple. Accusations. Manipulation. Implications that Raven had been bought, like an accessory in Sienna's revenge fantasy. She went public, Sienna whispered. She told them everything. Everything. Raven asked carefully.
The party. Us.
That I hired you. Sienna looked up. She's painting you as a prop. Raven's face went still. Blank.
Well.
She's not wrong about the beginning. But she's wrong about everything else. Is she? The question cut deeper than Sienna expected. Raven. I agreed to this, Sienna. I agreed to pretend. To help you make a point. So maybe I was a prop. Maybe I let myself believe it was more. It is more. You know it is. Then why does it still feel like I'm standing in her shadow? Raven stood, grabbing a hoodie from the floor. I told you I wouldn't survive being another casualty in your past. You're not, Sienna said, standing too. You're not her. And I'm not who I was with her. This is different. Raven's eyes filled, not with anger, but something worse.
Doubt.
Then prove it.
Publicly. Now.
Not eventually. Not when it's convenient.
Now.
You want me to go public? With us? I want to stop being something you're afraid to name. Sienna stared at her. Her heart thudded like a warning. She wasn't afraid of business battles, corporate takeovers, hostile investors. But this was terrifying. Because it meant letting the world see. Letting them tear her apart. Letting them get to Raven, too. But love, real love, wasn't private. It didn't live in silence. Okay, Sienna said, voice steady. Let's do it. Really? Right now. She grabbed her phone, opened her social media app, took a photo. Raven, still raw, hoodie half on, no makeup, eyes wary. She snapped it anyway. Typed the caption, "This is Raven." She's not a distraction. She's not a prop. She's the reason I'm becoming someone better. And I love her. She hit post. The silence afterward was deafening. Raven stared at her. You didn't have to do that. You asked me to. But you didn't hesitate. No, Sienna said. Because if I lose everything because of this, at least I'll know I finally chose right. Raven crossed the room slowly and kissed her like a storm breaking. No more pretending. No more shadows. Just truth. Just them. Finally, them. The photo had barely been up for an hour when the headlines started rolling in. Sienna Hale breaks silence. New romance or PR damage control? Raven Carter, from fake date to real problem? Sienna Hale's power play. Love or leverage? Sienna didn't flinch. Not outwardly. But Raven saw it. The slight twitch in her jaw, the way her fingers tightened around her phone, the flicker of pain she tried to bury beneath that famously unbothered expression. They were still in the loft. Still barefoot, raw. too vulnerable for the firestorm that was beginning to swell outside. Raven lowered her own phone. They're tearing you apart. I've survived worse. And me? Raven asked softly. Have I? That landed. Sienna looked up, her eyes suddenly filled with something sharp and real. I told you I'd protect you. You can't protect me from the internet, Raven said. Or from your past. Or from the way the world thinks love is a performance when it belongs to people like us. I'll shut it down. The press. The investors. I'll handle it. You can't fix this like a hostile takeover, Sienna. Raven's voice cracked. You can't throw lawyers and money at it and expect it to go away. This is me. My name. My face. My art. Everything is public now. Sienna stepped forward. Do you regret it? Raven hesitated.
No.
But I'm scared. So am I. They stood in that truth for a long time. Two powerful, stubborn women suddenly reduced to something delicate and real, human. Later that day, the backlash found Raven directly. A gossip blog twisted her work into mockery. A jealous critic accused her of sleeping her way into relevance. Her gallery's social media was flooded with vitriol.
Threats.
Slurs. Doubt disguised as curiosity. People wanted to break her, not because she had done anything wrong, but because she had been seen. And Raven tried to ignore it. For hours. Until the messages became too much. She threw her phone across the room. It shattered against the concrete. Sienna was there in seconds. What happened? Raven didn't answer right away. She just sank to the floor, back against the wall, hands shaking. They're everywhere, she whispered. Calling me a fraud. A slut. A fake. You're none of those things. They're saying my art is only relevant because I'm yours. Sienna knelt beside her. Then let them say it. Let them scream into the void. But you and I know the truth. And I swear to you, Raven, I will not let them erase you. Not because of me. Not because of us. I don't know if I can do this, Raven said. I thought I could. But I didn't think it would be this ugly. Then let me be the one they aim at. Let me take the fire. Raven looked at her, tears trembling in her lashes. But you'll burn too. I've already burned, Sienna said. For years. I just didn't have anyone to burn for. That night, Raven didn't ask for space. She asked for closeness. For warmth. For silence, not because they had nothing to say, but because they finally didn't need to speak to be understood. They stayed curled up on the couch, wrapped in one blanket, one body, one heartbeat. Until Sienna's phone buzzed. A different kind of alert. Priority. Urgent board update. Shareholder vote called for emergency leadership review. Raven saw the screen. What does that mean? Sienna exhaled. It means they're trying to remove me. Raven's breath caught. Because of this? Because they see me as unstable, distracted, weak. You're none of those things. But they don't care. They care about stock prices. Optics. Controlling the narrative. Raven stood. So what do? We fight. And if they force you out? Sienna looked at her, jaw firm, fire in her eyes. Then I lose the company. But I don't lose you. Raven swallowed hard. You might lose everything. Sienna stepped forward. Then let me ask you this. If I give up everything for us, will you stay? Raven didn't flinch. She stepped into her, pressed her hand against Sienna's heart. Yes. And that was enough. Even if the world burned tomorrow, they had this.
For now.
For real. The boardroom was ice. Not in temperature, but in energy. Every seat filled with polished ambition and thinly veiled judgment. They didn't look at her the way they used to. Not as the untouchable tech visionary, the prodigy CEO. Now they saw a liability. A woman who dared to fall in love in public. Sienna walked in wearing a deep navy suit, not black. Black was for mourning, and she refused to walk into this room like she was already defeated. She carried no notes, no script, just truth. Her assistant tried to hand her a folder on the way in. She didn't take it. She didn't need numbers. She needed fire. Ms. Hale, the chairman said, voice smooth and cold. This emergency review has been called in response to recent media controversies and the resulting drop in investor confidence. We have prepared a list of questions too. No, Sienna said, her voice slicing clean through the room. You don't get to dress this up as corporate strategy. This is a witch hunt. A few heads turned. Some eyes narrowed. You've all watched me turn this company from a startup into a global force. You've praised my leadership, my vision, my results. But the moment I show the world that I'm human, that I have a heart, you want to strip me of everything I've built. The situation is more complex than that, another board member said. Our shareholders are concerned. They're concerned because you've made them concerned, Sienna snapped. Because one of you, David, manipulated internal systems, leaked private information, and spun a narrative that had nothing to do with performance and everything to do with power. And now you want to clean it up by removing me, hoping the press will forget if the woman at the center of the scandal disappears quietly. I won't. The chairman leaned back. It's not personal, Ms. Hale. It's only personal, she said. Because if this were about performance, I wouldn't be standing here. Let me remind you, our revenue is up 23% this quarter. Our last 3 product launches broke industry records. Our user base has tripled in a year. The only thing that's changed is that I stopped pretending to be heartless. I chose to be seen. I chose her. Silence stretched. Thick. Sharp. Then a board member, a woman, older, sharp-eyed, spoke. Are you saying you're in a relationship with this woman? Officially? Yes. And you hired her first? Yes. A murmur rippled through the room. So, it started as a performance? Yes, Sienna said, unapologetic. But it became something real. More real than any contract I've ever signed. I won't deny it, I won't spin it, and I won't walk away from it to save your headlines. You're admitting to a PR deception, someone else said.
No.
I'm admitting to being human. The chairman steepled his fingers. If we proceed with the vote, there's a strong chance the board will elect to remove you as CEO. Then vote, Sienna said. But know this, if you vote me out, I walk with all my patents, all my code, all my IP. This company will survive, but it will never thrive without me. And I will rebuild everything I've lost, from the ground up, without you. The silence was suffocating. The chairman finally exhaled. We'll need time to discuss. Take it, Sienna said. But understand, whatever happens, I will not apologize for loving someone. Not again. She walked out. Didn't wait for their verdict. In the hallway, her assistant stood, pale, shaking. Do I still have a job? If I do, Sienna said, you do. She didn't stop moving until she was outside. Until the air hit her face. Until she could finally breathe. Then her phone buzzed. Raven. How did it go? Sienna stared at the message. Then typed. I didn't back down. A pause. Then another buzz. Then neither will I. Later that night, she found Raven in the gallery, alone, painting in near darkness. She stood in the doorway and watched her. Watched the way she moved, like her whole soul was in her hands. You came, Raven said without turning. Of course I did. Did they fire you? They're still deciding. Raven set her brush down, turned to face her. Are you scared? Only of losing you. Then don't. Sienna crossed the room, kissed her, not like someone who might lose, but like someone who had already won. Because win or lose, this was the only legacy that mattered now. The message came at 3:14 p.m. Sienna had been pretending to work, seated at her desk, staring at numbers she didn't care about anymore, sipping a coffee that had long gone cold. The notification buzzed like a warning. The board has reached a decision. Her heart thudded once. Then again, but slower, heavier. She opened the message without ceremony. Effective immediately, the board has voted 6-3 in favor of removing Sienna Hale from her position as CEO. Her eyes didn't move. Her breath didn't falter. She just stared at the words like they belonged to someone else.
Fired.
After everything. After building the company from her living room. After late nights and blood and sweat and battles and victories. After choosing truth over strategy. She had been cut loose. Just like that. She stood.
quietly,
walked out of her office, ignoring the shocked faces, the hushed voices, the way the building seemed to know. She didn't wait for a car, didn't text Raven. She just walked. Through the city. Through the ache. Through the disbelief. The fall of an empire didn't sound like thunder. It sounded like silence. Her silence. But somewhere along the walk, something in her shifted. She wasn't collapsing. She wasn't breaking. She wasn't even angry. She felt something else instead. Freedom. She had nothing to lose anymore. No title. No throne. No cage. She found herself outside the gallery without even realizing it. The lights were on. Raven was inside, laughing with two women Sienna didn't recognize, buyers probably, or artists. It didn't matter. Sienna stood there for a moment, watching her through the window, watching the way she glowed. No one had taken that from her. No headline. No lie. No betrayal. Raven was still hers. When she finally stepped inside, Raven looked up and knew instantly. They did it. Yes. Are you okay? I think I'm better than I should be. Do you regret it? Only that I didn't do it sooner. Raven walked to her. You're free now.
Yes.
But I'm also unemployed. Raven smiled. You're not the type to stay unemployed. No, Sienna said. But I might take a few days to remember who I am outside of Hale Tech. You'll figure it out. Not alone. No, Raven said. Not anymore. But the moment didn't stay quiet. Because her phone buzzed again. Sienna checked it, another notification, this time from a social feed. Then another. Then another. Trending. Everywhere. Hashtag stand with Sienna, hashtag love is not a weakness, hashtag Hale still stands. The world had seen her fall, and didn't want her gone. The post she'd made about Raven had gone viral. Not in the scandalous way the board feared. In the human way. People weren't mocking her. They were celebrating her. Her inbox was full. Messages from investors, colleagues, even rivals. Offers. Support. Invitations to speak. To lead. To build again. Because something had changed. She wasn't just a CEO. She was someone who chose love. And the world, some of it at least, wanted more of that. I don't think I'm finished, Sienna said. Raven raised an eyebrow. With what? With building. Just differently. What are you thinking? Something that doesn't belong to shareholders. Something we control. Something that matters. Raven smiled. Us. Yes, Sienna said, her voice low, full. And whatever comes next. That night, they lay on Raven's couch, scrolling through the flood of support. Artists quoting Raven. Entrepreneurs defending Sienna. Strangers telling their stories. Love wasn't a scandal anymore. It was a revolution. And they were in the center of it. Not hiding. Not pretending. Just being. Sienna pressed a kiss to Raven's shoulder. Thank you for not letting me hide. Raven turned to her. Thank you for finally choosing to be seen. Neither of them said I love you again that night. They didn't need to. They were building something stronger than words. Something real. Together. Sienna had always known how to build. Startups. Systems. Empires. She could spot a gap in the market in seconds, predict user behavior before the data even loaded. She thrived in the language of power, mergers, patents, strategy. But now, sitting across the table from Raven in a quiet cafe in Echo Park with no bodyguards, no assistants, no title to hide behind, she realized she didn't know how to build something that wasn't meant to be controlled. Because Raven wasn't a project. This wasn't an acquisition. This was something messier. Something softer. Something real. Raven sipped her espresso, her hair still damp from the shower, skin glowing in the early morning light. You haven't said a word since we sat down, she said. I'm thinking. You're always thinking. That's how I avoid feeling. Raven smiled without humor. I notice. Sienna looked down at the untouched croissant on her plate. I want to build something new. Something we own. Together. Raven tilted her head. We. You and me. Not just romantically. Creatively. Professionally. Something that matters. Not just tech for profit, but tech for people. That's the ambitious. So am I. Raven leaned back, studying her. What would that even look like? I don't know yet, Sienna admitted. But I know how to design systems. And you know how to create experiences that make people feel. We're opposites, but that's the point. We could build something that changes how people connect. Something immersive, artistic, emotional. Tech and art, Raven said slowly. Merging instead of competing. Exactly. What would we even call it? Something honest, Sienna said. Something brave. Raven stared at her for a long time. You really mean it? You want me in this? Not just your bed, not just your gallery, but your plans.
Yes.
I want every part of you, in every part of my life. I've built things alone. I've won awards, made billions, but none of it means anything without someone who keeps me grounded. Someone who challenges me. Someone who sees me. Raven's voice softened. I see you, Sienna. I know. That's why I'm terrified. Raven reached across the table and took her hand. Then let's be terrified together. The idea took root quickly. Meetings turned into sketches. Sketches turned into digital mock-ups. Mock-ups became prototypes. Within 2 weeks, they had a name, SYNTH. A platform that merged emotion and technology. Interactive storytelling built by artists and coded by innovators. Empathy-driven. Non-linear. Created for users to explore identity, intimacy, and human connection in ways no app had ever allowed. Sienna coded until her fingers ached. Raven sketched until her arms were stained with ink. They fought.
God, they fought.
About tone. About structure. About pacing. Sienna wanted precision. Raven wanted feeling. Sienna said, that doesn't scale. Raven snapped, not everything is supposed to. But through the chaos, something beautiful formed. A rhythm. A balance. A team. And at night, when they weren't building, they were holding each other. Sharing silent moments. Staring at the ceiling and asking dangerous questions like, what if this actually works? Or worse, what if it doesn't? But no matter the fear, they didn't stop. Then one afternoon, Raven walked into their small rented workspace holding her phone, pale and wide-eyed. It happened. What happened? That art tech blog, the one that dragged us both in the beginning? They just published a full feature. What kind of feature? A love letter.
To us.
To SYNTH. She handed Sienna the phone. The headline read, When Tech Found Its Soul, Inside the Wild, Messy, Beautiful Vision of SYNTH. The article was long, emotional,
raw.
It praised Raven's vulnerability, Sienna's vision, their tension, their tenderness. People are listening, Raven whispered. They're getting it. Sienna didn't say anything at first. Just sat down. Exhaled. We did it. We're doing it, Raven corrected. This is just the start. That night, Sienna took her to the roof of their building. No press. No show. Just city lights and the sound of cars below. What is this? Raven asked. Sienna pulled something from her coat pocket.
A chain. Silver.
Simple. On it a small charm. A single engraved letter. R. You once said you didn't want to be a secret, Sienna said. Now you never will be again. Raven's eyes filled. You made this. Designed it. Had it printed yesterday.
Why?
Because for the first time, I'm building something that has nothing to do with stock options or press releases. I'm building us. And I wanted a reminder. Something permanent. Raven put it on. Then kissed her. Not fast. Not desperate. Just full of meaning. Of memory. Of promise. It wasn't a ring. Not yet. But it was something. Something real. And they weren't just building an app now. They were building a life. The launch of SYNTH wasn't just successful, it was seismic. Within 72 hours, the app had over 200,000 users. Not empty clicks. Not curious trolls. Real people. Artists. Survivors. Lovers. People hungry for something that felt human in a world full of noise. Articles poured in. First from the niche outlets, then the mainstream. Tech with a soul. The platform that redefines connection. A queer-led creative revolution. Sienna had been featured before. On Forbes covers, in industry power lists, in sanitized interviews about market disruption. But this was different. This wasn't about her success. It was about what she was building with Raven. And that made it dangerous. Because now everything felt real. Too real. Sienna was used to praise. She didn't know how to carry vulnerability. And vulnerability was exactly what SYNTH demanded. She sat in the back of their new downtown office space, staring at her laptop, watching numbers skyrocket while her chest tightened. Not from fear. From something worse. Doubt. Raven entered the room like a storm wrapped in silk, paint on her wrists, passion in her stride, eyes shining from her last creative meeting. She paused when she saw Sienna. "You okay?" Sienna nodded. "Just tired. You haven't left that chair in hours." "Neither have you." Raven smiled.
True.
"But I'm high on this momentum. Can't you feel it?" "I feel something," Sienna said. "But I don't know if it's momentum or pressure." Raven sat beside her, resting her head on Sienna's shoulder. "They love us. Finally." "They love what we made," Sienna whispered. "Not necessarily us." "You don't believe that." "I believe that love is fragile. Especially when it's new. And loud. And public." Raven didn't argue. She just listened. And that, more than any reassurance, helped Sienna breathe again. But the calm didn't last. That week, a venture capital firm reached out with a proposal. Massive funding. Global expansion. All on one condition. That Raven stepped back. "She's a visionary," the lead investor said in the call, slick and patronizing. "But the brand needs focus. One face. One message." "And that face is mine?" Sienna asked, flat. "You're the known entity. The power name. She's the wild card." Sienna didn't respond. She ended the call without another word. But the damage had already begun. Because now the question had been planted. Would SYNTH be stronger without Raven in the spotlight? And worse, was Sienna strong enough to say no? Raven sensed it before Sienna spoke. They were in the studio, working side by side, when she paused and asked, "What happened?" Sienna froze. "What do you mean?" "Something shifted. You're pulling back. Quiet. Calculating." "Investors called. And they made an offer." Raven wiped her hands.
Tell me.
"They want to scale globally.
Fast.
Inject millions. And they want you out of the public brand." Raven didn't speak for a long time, just stared at the canvas in front of her like it had betrayed her too. "Of course they do." "I said no." That made Raven look at her. "You did." "Of course I did. Because it would have been easy not to." "I know. And tempting." "Yes." "So, why didn't you?" Sienna's voice cracked. "Because I built my last empire by climbing over people. I won't build this one by erasing the person who made me human again." Raven stepped closer, eyes soft, voice steel. "Don't you dare forget who you are, Sienna. You're not them. You're not David. You're not Veronica. You don't need to choose power over love. Not anymore." Sienna cupped her face. "I know, but some days I forget. I fall into the rhythm of who I used to be. Then I'll remind you. Every time." That night, they didn't talk about business. Or threats. Or money. They cooked.
Badly.
Burned pasta. Laughed too loud. Kissed too long. And when they curled into each other on the couch, Sienna whispered, "What if this is it?" "What do you mean?" "What if this is the happiest we'll ever be?" Raven kissed her temple. "Then let's stay here as long as we can." But fate doesn't pause for perfect moments. The next morning, Raven received an anonymous envelope at the gallery. Inside was a photograph. Blurry. From weeks ago. Sienna. On the sidewalk. Talking to Veronica. Too close. Too familiar. No context. No timestamp. Just implication. And a typed note. "Some lies don't fade. Especially when you build a company on them." Raven didn't tell Sienna. Not right away. She wanted to believe it was nothing. But deep down, the old fears stirred. Not about whether Sienna loved her, but whether Sienna still had secrets. And for the first time in weeks, Raven didn't come home. Raven didn't sleep that night. Not because she didn't want to, but because sleep was a kind of surrender, and she wasn't ready to give in to the weight pressing on her chest. The envelope with the photo sat on her kitchen table like a loaded gun. She kept staring at it, waiting for it to vanish, to become meaningless. It didn't. It stayed there, whispering everything she didn't want to hear, that maybe she'd fallen too fast, trusted too deeply, given herself too completely. That maybe Sienna hadn't changed after all. That maybe this whole beautiful thing was still being built on secrets. By morning, her phone had buzzed 16 times. Sienna. Missed calls. Texts. Where are you? Raven, please.
Talk to me.
She didn't answer. Not because she didn't want to, but because she was afraid of what she'd hear. Afraid of the one thing she couldn't unhear. It was nothing. Because if Sienna said that, it meant something. It meant a lie. And Raven had promised herself. Never again. But love has a gravity. And no matter how far you try to drift, it pulls you back. So, at 10:42 a.m., Raven walked into the SYNTH office with the envelope in her hand and pain in her chest. Sienna was there already, pacing, pale, panicked. When she saw her, her whole body stilled.
God.
Raven. Raven held up the envelope. Tell me. Sienna didn't flinch. She took it, opened it, saw the photo, and closed her eyes like it physically hurt to remember. She cornered me outside the building. Said she wanted closure. I didn't invite her. I didn't want her there. You didn't tell me. Because I didn't want to give her space in our life. That wasn't your choice. Sienna looked at her, eyes red-rimmed, voice steady. I was afraid. Not of her.
Of you. Of this.
Because I've never had anything worth protecting like this before. I didn't know how to hold it without breaking it. Raven stepped closer, voice tight. That's not an excuse. I know. It's the truth. And I'm sorry. Do you still love her? No. Do you still owe her something? Not anymore. Then tell me one thing, Raven said. Am I the only truth left in your life? Sienna stepped forward. You're the only one I want to build truth with. Everything else, hail tech, the board, the titles, that was survival. This is living. For a long moment, the room was nothing but silence.
Breath.
Heartbeat. Then Raven nodded. Okay. But you don't get to disappear into your silence anymore. If we do this, we do it raw. Open. Loud. No more control. Sienna reached for her hand. Deal. That night, they stood in front of a packed venue, an audience of developers, artists, activists, and strangers who had found pieces of themselves in SYNTH. It was their first joint appearance. Raven wore black silk and paint beneath her fingernails. Sienna wore no makeup, and the necklace she'd made for Raven tucked under her blouse. People think this platform started with a kiss, Raven said, speaking first. It didn't. It started with pain, Sienna continued, and fear, and control. But it turned into something real, Raven said. Not because it was perfect, but because it wasn't, Sienna finished. Because love isn't clean code. It's messy. It crashes. It burns. But when it works, when it works, it rewrites everything, Raven said. And the room stood, applauded,
cheered.
Because it wasn't just about the tech anymore. It was about them. About two women who had met in a lie and fought their way into something true. SYNTH went global within a month. They declined 5 more investment offers. Chose independence. Chose each other. Moved into a quiet home with wide windows and loud mornings. Built a life of art and light and late-night coding. 1 year later, Sienna proposed. No flash. No press. Just a question whispered against Raven's neck as they danced barefoot in the kitchen. And Raven said yes. Not because it was perfect, but because it was theirs. Because in the end, the billionaire who hired a fake date to survive her ex's engagement party didn't just steal the spotlight. She found her soulmate in the woman who refused to play a part. And the love they created? It wasn't for show. It was real. It was lasting. And it was home. If you enjoyed this content and want to support the channel in a special way, try clicking the thanks button below. It's the one with the heart and $sign icon. With super thanks, you can make a direct contribution to the channel, which helps me keep creating awesome videos for you.